Hold on to your wetsuits, folks, because the ocean just got a whole lot scarier. Marine biologists have officially confirmed what many feared. The Megalodon, the prehistoric monster of the deep, is not extinct. This colossal predator, once thought to be a relic of the past, has been spotted lurking in the depths of our oceans. Get ready to dive into a thrilling marathon of evidence, expert analysis, and terrifying encounters as we confront the chilling reality that the apex predator of all time is back.
The TikTok shark. In May of last year, someone on TikTok called Alex Albrecht, who is a marine biodiversity student as well as a musician, shared a video on the app that had people seriously shocked. The TikTok shows a massive shark lurking around the ship that Alex was on, which is said to have just been off of the coast of Massachusetts at the time. The ship was full of research students when this massive shark made its appearance, many of which either screamed or had some sort of expletive to say in response. Another TikTok user asked in the comments if the shark in the video is a megalodon, considering how absolutely huge this thing was. Was this an actual megalodon? Likely not, but hey, I'm not the marine life student here, so who am I to say? In our number 9 spot today we have the Cray Fisherman. David Stead is an Australian naturalist, and in his book titled Sharks and Rays of the Australian Seas, he details an encounter with a shark that some have taken to believe is the legendary Megalodon herself. Apparently this incident happened in 1981 to a group of Cray fishermen that David spoke with. These fishermen were absolutely terrified of a shark they saw in their fishing grounds, which were just off of Broughton Island. They were so scared, in fact, that they refused to return to the fishing spot for days. All the men agreed that the shark was monstrous and that it was most definitely a shark, not a whale. The men explained that they had never seen a shark of that size before, and considering how they were all seasoned fishermen who had all had their fair share of encounters with sharks, whales, and all of the terrifying things that the ocean has to offer, how frightened they were really did leave quite the impression. In our number 8 spot today we have 2 specimens. This story comes from all the way back in 1869 when an Irish scientist headed out on an expedition to Seychelles. It is said that he went there to study fish, but man, he was not prepared for the specimens he would go on to study. It is said that he found one that was over 15 meters, which is already a whopping almost 50 feet, but the other one really took the cake. The second specimen it is said that he found was alleged to have been 23 meters long, which is a massive 75 feet. Since this was so long ago, there wasn't any official documentation of it, but if there had been, the second one would hold the record for being the largest ever recorded. That is absolutely wild. Seeing it is one thing, but imagine being able to actually study it. In our number 7 spot today we have the sailors. This gigantic shark sighting is said to have taken place in the 1960s just off of the edge of Australia's Great Barrier Reef. According to author B.C. Cartmel in his book Let's Go Fossil Shark Tooth Hunting, the sailors involved in this sighting initially refused to talk about it because of the fear of being teased for being afraid of what they had seen. After some time, however, they began to speak about the incident. They explained that while on board their 85-foot ship, they needed to weigh anchor in order to conduct some engine repairs. While this was ongoing, the crew became absolutely shocked when they saw the biggest shark they had ever seen slowly swimming past their completely stuck ship. Just like the last one, all the men agreed that they were not mistaking a whale and that it was indeed a shark. They also said that this shark was so large it was rivaling the boat in size. That is absolutely massive. Whether it really was a megalodon or not, whatever shark they saw that day certainly wasn't the average size. In our number 6 spot today we have the battle scar. This story is a little different than the others on today's list, and it started with the sighting of a great white shark. This 15-foot long shark was spotted swimming just off of Isla Guadalupe in Mexico, but what was so striking about this great white in particular was the absolutely savage wound it had on its side. This huge bite mark had people speculating as to what in the world could have caused it. I mean, there aren't very many predators to great whites, so it's a pretty rare occasion to see such a huge bite mark right on the side of one, and people were doubting whether or not another shark would have done this to one of its own species. There definitely are reasons for why this could have been an attack from another shark, but of course people took this as a possible sign that maybe there's something bigger lurking in the waters. If the megalodon somehow isn't actually extinct and just this manages to evade any sort of confirmation of its existence, it certainly would need a ton of food to survive, which makes big fish like great whites a perfect snack. The Megalodon is, however, one of the most powerful predators to have ever lived on our planet, so if this bite really was from a Megalodon, it's surprising that this great white made it out alive. In our number 5 spot today, we have a world record. Basking sharks are known for being one of the largest fish in the ocean, and that is exactly why the largest one ever recorded was definitely something to write home about. In 1851, in the Bay of Fundy, which sits between New Brunswick and Nova Scotia here in Canada, a basking shark was caught in a herring net. This shark was measured to be at least 40 feet long, which is astoundingly large, and it certainly confused those who had caught it at first. I can imagine that they likely also thought that they had some kind of living fossil caught up in their net, but nope, instead they just set a new world record. In our number 4 spot today, we have the demon. There are many stories and alleged sightings of what is now referred to as the quote black demon of Cortez, which is said to be a massive black shark seen off of Mexico's Baja coast. One story in particular regarding this elusive shark comes from a fisherman named Eric Mack. He had reported that one day while sailing he felt his boat begin to rock, which immediately gave him the feeling that something was awry. Eric was even further startled when he explained that he saw a massive towering tail sticking at least 5 feet out of the water. The stories of this shark are so infamous that it was even the focus of an episode of a History Channel show called Monster Quest. Maybe if there's a part 2 of this video, we'll talk about some more of the sightings surrounding the demon. In our number 3 spot today, we have deep blue. This shark is in fact not a megalodon, but it definitely is a more modern contender. Deep blue is the name of a great white shark who is most definitely one of the greatest ever recorded, at least in our lifetime. This colossal monster is the largest great white shark ever caught on camera by scientists. She is measured to be 20 feet long, 8 feet high, and about 2.5 tons, and while this isn't all that huge compared to her massive prehistoric cousin, it certainly is no small feat. Rumors of her existence have been spread since as far back as the 1990s, but it wasn't until 2014 that she was officially caught on camera and documented. Researchers at the time were in the midst of studying tiger sharks, but she made her grand appearance after scavenging some food from a sperm whale carcass nearby. In our number 2 spot today, we have Bigger Than the Boat. Zane Grey is a man who is a novelist, and he is definitely best known for his adventure novels, but it is also said that he was a deep sea angler, and it was during one of his fishing adventures that his Megalodon sighting came. In the novel, which is titled Megalodon, Fact or Fiction, writer Rick Emmer speaks of this incident, saying that Zane claimed to have seen, quote, one of the man-eating monsters of the South Pacific. It is said that whatever kind of shark he saw, it was a shark that was much longer than his boat, which was somewhere from 30 to 40 feet. He also said that this shark was yellow and green, and that it had a few white spots. Most notably, however, he said that the shark had a massive square head, and that it had, quote, immense pectoral fins. This is all to say that whether he saw a megalodon or not, whatever he saw was not just a harmless great white shark. What do you guys think? Perhaps a Megalodon sighting, or just one of the tall, exciting tales told by Mr. Grey? In our number 1 spot today, we have the Mariana Trench sighting. A few years ago, a video began circulating the internet, and it shows a gigantic shark scouring the seafloor. People online quickly put a story to the video saying that allegedly this is a Megalodon that was caught on camera at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. The creature is seen swimming over top of what is apparently an abandoned shark cage, and the video seems to be enough to have convinced many people. The video certainly is compelling, and whatever we see is most definitely terrifying to look at, but with my very limited knowledge of anything that lives in the sea, it's tough to say anything further. While some people swear that this is solid proof, others have brought up sharks that may have a similar appearance to the one seen in the video. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the first discoveries. To start off with, we are taking it back to the Renaissance era. According to accounts from the time, there were discoveries of huge triangular fossilized teeth, but at the time these teeth were so big and they had no idea who or what they belonged to. Instead, people of the time thought that they were petrified tongues or shed teeth that belonged to snakes and dragons. I mean, with the size of these teeth, I truly do not blame people for thinking that they were proof of the existence of dragons. It wasn't until 1667 when the Danish naturalist Nicolaus Steno recognized them as the teeth of sharks, and it was then that he described his finding in the book The Head of a Shark Dissected, which also contained an illustration of the tooth. In our number 9 spot today we have the feeding habits. Well, it's hard to learn much about the habits of a creature that has been extinct for as long as the Megalodon has. There are different and really interesting clues we can use to determine some of the things that were once a complete mystery to us, and one of those things has to do with their feeding habits. Of course, a creature that is slated to be as large as the Meg is going to need a lot of fuel. It's gonna need a big meal, and what better large meal lives in the ocean than a whale? That's right, one of our current largest creatures was a Megalodon delicacy. You may be wondering how we were able to figure this out, and that relates back to the finding of fossilized whale bones. These bones have been found with cut marks from Megalodon teeth etched into their surface. It is said that some of these bones even have nastier wounds with the shark teeth actually still stuck in them from millions of years ago. Talk about an apex predator. In our number 8 spot today we have the bite force. One thing scientists have been able to estimate about the Megalodon is what they think might have been the force that they could bite down with. So to set the stage, we of course need something to go on, unless you're already an expert in bite forces. Humans, our bite force is measured to be around 1,317 newtons. That doesn't seem too bad. Next, a great white shark, which seems to be quite the predator here currently on Earth. Their bite force is measured at about 18,216 newtons. That's definitely quite a jump from us as humans, but it makes sense. I mean, a great white can definitely do a lot of damage should it choose to. So now we have the Megalodon, one of the most powerful predators to have ever existed, the apex predator. Scientists estimate their bite force was between 108,514 to 182,201 newtons. A reminder that ours isn't even 1,500. It's discoveries like these that really put into perspective just how large and powerful this prehistoric creature really was. In our number 7 spot today we have so many teeth. So most of the discoveries relating to fossils of megalodons that have been found are just teeth. There's so many teeth, and so little of really anything else that has been found. And that of course begs the question as to why? Well, apparently part of this is because sharks continuously produce teeth throughout their entire lives, and depending on what they eat they often lose their teeth. Like, apparently it's so common that they go through thousands of teeth in their lifetime. Maybe I'm new to the shark game, but I had no idea. But of course this means that shark teeth are constantly raining down to the sea floor, only to later be discovered, and in the case of megalodons, only to become a fossil first. The other half of why the teeth are so common is because teeth are the hardest part of a shark's skeleton. Sharks' bodies are made from a softer cartilage rather than bone, sort of like the stuff that our nose and ears are made of. This means that the chances of these things surviving all of these millions of years are slim to none. In our number 6 spot today we have a fossil. Like I mentioned previously, it's hard to find any remains or fossils of megalodons other than teeth. Most of these remains have been lost to time, but that is exactly what makes this discovery so fascinating. A fossil found in Peru a few years ago is said to not only have been the discovery of a full set of teeth, but also a brain case and a small string of vertebrae, which is a very rare find. Aside from just being a relic from a time long past, this fossil could give us immeasurable insights into what these creatures looked like, more so than we know now, and it may even be able to uncover some of the secrets that remain hidden in the past. In our number 5 spot today we have their appearance. From when the existence of megalodons was first discovered up until quite recently, people believed that these sharks looked basically like a ginormous great white shark. Like, most of us have seen Jaws, think of that shark. Or the 2018 classic, The Meg. That's what people assumed they looked like. Turns out, based on what we now know, that's really not the case. These sharks would have had a much shorter nose than a great white, like a sort of flattened and squished one. It also would have had longer, like extra long pectoral fins, because when you're that big, you need all of the support you can get to navigate through the water. We thought that megalodons would look like great whites because we thought that they were related, but as it turns out, that isn't true. Megalodons actually come from a different lineage of sharks, and sadly sadly, they were the last member of the lineage. In our number 4 spot today, we have ancestors. Speaking of the life and lineage of megalodons, let's take a look back at what we know about their ancestors. The oldest definitive ancestor of the Meg is a 55 million year old shark called Otodus obliquus. These sharks grew to be about 9 meters or 30 feet long. This of course isn't where things stop though. The evolutionary history of this shark goes back to another ancestor called Cretalamna, which lived about 105 million years ago. This means that the lineage of the megalodon spans over 100 million years. That's wild. This is part of how they found out that megs and great whites weren't actually as closely related as once thought. Through more fossils that have been found, they've been able to trace this lineage, and in fact it is now believed that ancestors of great white sharks and the megalodon probably lived at the same time, and they were likely in competition with each other. Safe to say it would have been a pretty terrifying time to live in the ocean. In our number 3 spot today, we have a Cosmopolitan. One of the things that helps us to know that the megalodon existed relates back to how widespread they once were on Earth. It is said that this species was adapted to warm tropical and subtropical waters, but that means that they could be found basically on every continent except Antarctica, and we have found the teeth to prove it. Apparently the places where most have been found include the east coast of North America, and definitely in the bottom of saltwater creeks and rivers in places like North Carolina, South Carolina, and Florida. They are also said to be a common find for divers off of the coast of Morocco and in certain parts of Australia. They're even sometimes found in the UK, but this is definitely more of a rare sighting there. This is all to say that this proves to us that this was a species that was clearly thriving during their time here on Earth. It can be hard to imagine these prehistoric creatures, but in the history of our planet, they really aren't that long gone. In our number 2 spot today, we have rings. One of the best preserved and most complete megalodon fossils or specimens finds its home in the Royal Belgian Institute of Natural Sciences Conservatories in Brussels. This includes a collection of 150 vertebrae that were found in the 19th century Antwerp, Belgium. When they were discovered, they weren't completely strung together, but they were found in the same layer of rock in the same location, which would make it fair to deduce that they likely came from the same animal. Using 3 of these vertebrae, researchers were able to find out the age and roughly the size of the shark when it passed away millions of years ago. They were able to do this because apparently on shark vertebrae they have sort of rings, like trees do. Like you can count the rings of a tree, and you can apparently do that for a shark as well, which will give you an estimate on their age. On this specific specimen they counted 46 circles in the vertebrae, which put the shark at roughly 46 years of age. This would have been quite young for a megalodon since they are said to have lived to be about 88 to 100 years old. Having this age estimate allowed them to also estimate the potential size of this megalodon, which they said was around 9.2 meters or roughly 30 feet. In our number 1 spot today, we have Bye Bye Megalodon. To cap off this list today, it only seems fair that we talk about what happened to the megalodon. If they were these huge, powerful apex predators, how did they die off, especially when other shark species have seemed to survive? We know that the megalodon was extinct by the Pliocene, which was 2.6 million years ago, and was when the Earth entered a phase of cooling. We of course can't know exactly the moment the last megalodon died, but right now it is believed that it may have been about 3.6 million years ago. The cooling of the planet is likely the biggest contributor to the demise of the Meg. I mentioned before that they preferred warm tropical waters, and a drop in those temperatures would totally throw off the habitat that they once called home. This significant habitat loss, coupled with the likelihood of their favorite prey either also going extinct or adapting to cooler waters and moving where the sharks couldn't go, truly is a recipe for disaster for the good old megalodon. Another big contributing factor relates to when they gave birth, which is thought to have happened close to the shore, which would provide a cozy, shallow nursery for their young that was free from predators like large whales. This is all fine and dandy until ice begins to form at the poles and the sea levels dropped, which means that the safe place where they once went to have their pups was now destroyed as well. Scientists believe that up to a third of large marine animals, which includes 43% of turtles and 35% of seabirds, birds became extinct as a result of the cooling temperatures seen millions of years ago. This affected and significantly dropped the number of organisms at the bottom of the food chain, which ends up being a huge problem for our giant apex predators. Starting off at our number 10 spot, we have the Mexican cenote. A couple of years ago, in the city of Madera, which is located in Mexico, researchers found the teeth of several species of shark, some of which of course belonged to our fave, the Megalodon. It is believed that this city was once underwater many years ago, and this discovery of course only bolstered that theory. There were teeth found from 3 different species of shark, and there were also vertebrae that may have belonged to an extinct animal species, and even fossilized human bones were found, which makes it clear that there is quite a rich history in this area. This discovery actually came after a photographer was looking at the wall of a cave and noticed something strange. This strange looking thing ended up being a tooth that once belonged to a saw shark. Hopefully with further analysis of the area we can find more about what once called that place home and where that fits in the history and timeline of our planet. In our number 9 spot today we have the South Carolina discovery. Back in 2020 a woman was walking the beach in South Carolina when she spotted a gray chunk sticking out of the sand. She suddenly realized that this was a tooth, and it was a lot larger than any she had seen before. She ended up taking a video as she found the tooth, which she ended up posting to Facebook, and according to her, the tooth was about 5.75 inches and weighed about 15.9 ounces. The area where she found the tooth was a coastal one in South Carolina, which was once the sea floor millions of years ago. The mud in the area is said to be quite the hotspot for finding ancient megalodon teeth and other incredible treasures. After the find, the woman was rightfully shocked, saying, quote, "The tooth is just incredible and it's mind-boggling that we now have a fossil on our mantle that is 3 to 5 million years old. Just wild." I mean, can we blame her? Not even the age, but how it's the fossil of the largest marine predator of all time. Pretty dang cool to say the least. In our number 8 spot today we have the seashell hunt. Back in July of 2019, a man was out walking with his family and their dog on the shores of Ocean Isle Beach when he saw something sticking out of the sand. You likely already know where I'm going with this. It is no surprise this was an almost 6-inch tooth that once belonged to a megalodon. The tooth itself of course is impressive, but so was the striking black root seen on the end. The family was apparently in the midst of searching for seashells, which is what led them to the tooth in the first place. In the low tide they could only see the black root, but thankfully they took the time to flip it over, which is when they realized what it was. While North Carolina is often a hotspot for these kinds of finds, this tooth was found more inland than usual, which was quite a surprise. While many people either sell or mount their prehistoric finds, this family apparently decided to donate it to the Museum of Coastal Carolina. In our number 7 spot today we have the UK find. Just a couple of months ago it was reported that a 6-year-old boy from the southeast of the UK had made the amazing find of a tooth from a megalodon. The beach that the child found the tooth on is said to be quite a popular spot for fossil hunters, but this tooth is a very rare and fascinating find. You might be thinking, aren't there lots of megalodon teeth on this list? And the answer is yes, but finding one is still a spectacular discovery, and finding one in the UK is one of the most rare of all. Only 1 or 2 megalodon teeth are found on UK shores a year, and most of the time they tend to be of quite poor quality. After reviewing the discovery, it was realized to be even more incredible because of how well preserved the tooth was, and the fact that the root and the enamel are still visible. Many experts have explained that they've been looking for this kind of find since they were 6 years old and have never found one. One scientist said of the find, quote, "He is handling the tooth of the largest ever predatory shark, and one that will be of interest to the whole paleontology community." In our number 6 spot today we have the family vacation. That 6-year-old from the UK isn't the only youngster who stumbled upon an ancient shark tooth recently, as it is said that a 5-year-old from South Carolina also made a similar discovery back in July of 2021. The boy named Xander found the tooth during a family vacation to North Myrtle Beach and was rightfully pretty ecstatic. Xander's mother Kelly explained that the quote, "whole family loves hunting for shark teeth," that quote, "Xander and my husband were searching in the swash during low tide when Xander spotted this one in the mud." Kelly posted photos of her son with the tooth to a couple of Facebook pages in an attempt to identify what exactly they had found, and that is when hundreds of people began chiming in claiming that they believed the tooth is one that had once belonged to a megalodon. They explained that while they have found other teeth, this is by far the largest one they've ever found, and while Xander wanted to put the tooth on a necklace, they will likely end up having it framed or maybe even mounted. In our number 5 spot today we have the tooth analysis. So of course, as we've previously discussed, especially on part 1 of this list, most of what is left of the megalodon Megalodon's existence is teeth. This leaves us with quite little to go on, but that doesn't mean we can't figure anything out about how the guys lived. Teeth are certainly better than nothing, and they might just give us more insights than one would expect. Researchers have been using a new technique to analyze Megalodon teeth that aims at figuring out their dietary signatures, as seen in the teeth. Researchers aren't just using Megalodon teeth and are actually examining teeth from 13 extinct sharks as well as 20 modern sharks to see where they fit in the food chain as well as what their trophic level is or was. For a long time, scientists have been trying to figure out what exactly caused the Megalodon to go extinct, considering they were an apex predator. Something had to go awry to cause their downfall, and this study is helping to prove what some believe, which is that their disappearance was caused by food competition. Researchers are looking at the presence of different isotopes of zinc that are preserved in the tooth enamel. This can help them to determine what kind of animal matter that different species of sharks ate, which in turn allows them to figure out which sharks that lived at the same time ate similar types of food and which didn't. So far, the research has led experts to believe that the Megalodon might have had some pretty stiff competition for food with another shark species at the same time, and this might be what led to their downfall. In our number 4 spot today, we have Bone Valley. The Bone Valley region of Florida is known for their Megalodon teeth, some of which have some pretty striking colors. While this was once a hotspot for finding the remains of the prehistoric shark, the teeth are now getting hard to come by as access to nearly all of the mines and phosphate pits where the teeth were found has been closed off. Many of the teeth found here were on the smaller side and are said to have once belonged to juveniles of this species. This is exactly why it is thought that this area was once a nursery for the Megalodons, which is super cool. Typically when found, Megalodon teeth have a gray coloring to them, but some in this region have been more white colored or yellow. In our number 3 spot today, we have nurseries. Speaking of Megalodon nurseries, there has been research into identifying these types of places specifically, and it is looking like there are 5 potential ones that have been found, and they include ones in the Atlantic, Caribbean, and Pacific basins where fossils have been located that range in age from 16 million to 3 million years. According to the study, quote, "Our analysis supports the presence of 5 potential nurseries ranging from the Middle Miocene to the Pliocene with higher densities of individuals with estimated body length within the typical range of neonates and young juveniles." It goes on to say, quote, "These results reveal for the first time that nursery areas were commonly used by O. megalodon over large temporal and spatial scales, reducing early mortality and playing a key role in maintaining viable adult populations." This just shows us that these areas were extremely important for the species in order to feed and protect the younger members, just like how modern sharks do the same sort of thing. In our number 2 spot today, we have the downfall. Like any scientist who studies the Megalodon, there is also the pressing question of how did these guys end up extinct? What really drove them there? It is something that we have some really good theories and hypotheses about, but no one can yet say for certain. Those same scientists who are studying the Megalodon nurseries, however, are also explaining why these nurseries could potentially have been one of the things that led to their downfall. In the same study, speaking about these 5 potential nurseries, they also explained that, quote, "Ultimately, the presumed reliance of O. megalodon on the presence of suitable nursery grounds might have also been determinant in the demise of this iconic top predatory shark. Our planet has changed a lot, and it is possible that these areas that they really relied on to help nurse their young into adulthood began disappearing thanks to the changing climate of the Earth. At this point, it is just another contender for real cause of the extinction of the Megalodon, but it is certainly a compelling argument. Although the Megalodon didn't survive up until these modern times, sharks as a class of animals have been able to survive all 5 global extinction events, which is absolutely incredible. In our number 1 spot today, we have the Supernova Theory. Okay, to cap off our list today, we have one more theory as to how the Megalodon may have gone extinct. The theory was published by 3 researchers in the Scientific Journal of Astrobiology, and basically it suggests that it could be possible that, quote, one or more supernova about 2.6 million years ago may have been the leading cause of a mass extinction of a large number of marine megafauna, which of course would include our buddy the Megalodon. This theory claims that an increase in radiation from these cosmic events may have been strong enough to have a drastic effect on marine life. In a statement, one of the scientists associated with the study said, quote, "Imagine the great white shark in Jaws, which was enormous, and that's the Megalodon, but it was about the size of a school bus. They just disappeared about that time, so we can speculate it might have something to do with the muons. Basically, the bigger the creature is, the bigger the increase in radiation would have been." They went on to say that the radiation from exploding stars, which could have been as close as just 160 light years away from Earth, may have been too much for our atmosphere and the creatures that lived here at the time to handle. While water shields a good amount of radiation, the scientists claim that it can't block the muons. The researcher also said, quote, "Creatures that are used to being almost isolated from radiation would suddenly get a whole lot. They would be unlikely to have as good of a defense against radiation as land creatures would." And that's the Endographer. This is an encounter that occurred just last year in November. Underwater photographer Darren Verbeck was diving off of the coast of Hawaii's Big Island when he saw what he thought was a school of fish. He began to get closer, I mean the whole photographer thing, and as he got closer he started to think that what he was actually seeing was a tiger shark. He continued to get closer, and that's when he said, quote, "I just kept looking at the head. I'm like, that is not a tiger shark." And it got closer and closer, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Darren continued to get closer to the shark and estimated it to be over 15 feet, which is definitely quite large. He explained that the shark was not acting in a threatening way, so he continued to take his photos and shot as much as he could before the massive shark decided to swim away. Experts explained that the shark was likely in the area because of humpback whales, and honestly, I do not want to see the shark that could take down one of those beasts. In our number 9 spot today, we have Todd Endris. Todd Endris is actually a man who was attacked by the same shark 3 different times on August 28, 2007. Todd was near Marina State Park in California when the attacks occurred. The first one didn't do too much damage, but the second one was certainly much worse. He would later go on to say, spoiler alert, he survived these attacks, he would later go on to say that during this second attack, the shark skinned his back, quote, "like a banana peel." Okay, Mario Kart just turned into Nightmare on Elm Street. With the third attack, the shark attempted to eat his leg, which was still attached to his body, and this is when his kind of unlikely savior came in. It was actually a group of dolphins that decided to surround Todd, which provided enough of a distraction that he was able to ride a wave back to shore. It is definitely possible that the shark could have, and it may have, eaten one of those rescue dolphins should it choose to. Once Todd was back on shore, despite having lost half of his blood, his friends were able to help him until rescue arrived, and from there, just 6 weeks later, he was back in the water. Sadly, Todd ended up losing his life in September of 2016 from a car crash, but it's important to note that after his attack, before his untimely death, he made it clear he held no grudge against his shark attacker. He said, quote, "We're in his realm, not the other way around." In our number 8 spot today, we have the J-Bay event finals. This shark attack is from 2015 and is one that happened on live TV, but thankfully it turned out much better than it could have. During the finals of the J-Bay event, which again was being broadcast live around the world, a shark got himself a little in over his head when he decided to try and take a bite out of 3-time world surfing champion Mick Fanning. Mick reacted a lot more bravely than I would have and started to fight back against the shark. While this was going on, another pro surfer, Julian Wilson, paddled towards the shark in order to try and help. In the end, the safety teams came out as quickly as possible to rescue the surfers and a photographer who was also out on the water, and everyone was fine, albeit probably a little shaken up. Fights broke out on the internet over whether this was a shark attack or a shark encounter, and I mean, all that really matters is the humans and the shark are all safe at the end of the day. In our number 7 spot today, we have the strange environment. This is a shark encounter that, I'll be honest, it isn't a megalodon, but it is one that is so strange it might just show that maybe we don't really have all the answers to ocean mysteries. Scientists were really surprised and confused when they found hammerhead and silky sharks swimming near an underwater volcano in the South Pacific. This is because the waters around there would be extremely hot, and they would also be really acidic. This is an extreme environment for marine life, and while some species would thrive in this environment, sharks aren't really on that list, hence the confusion and bafflement of the scientists. While this isn't a confirmed megalodon sighting, it is just something that shows us that life under the sea is mysterious and new secrets are revealed to us every day. In our number 6 spot today, we have Watson and the shark. For this one, we are headed all the way back to 1749 with a cabin boy named Brooke Watson. Brooke was swimming in the Havana harbor when he had his encounter with a shark. This one grabbed him by his right foot and dragged him under. The shark got a second chomp on his foot before a rescue boat was able to come and save him. The sailor on the boat managed to get the shark to back off enough that they could get Brooke out of the water. Brooke lost his lower leg, but his life was saved, which is absolutely the most important part. Brooke's story is not over, however, as he went on to become a member of Parliament and eventually Lord Mayor of England. He was so proud of himself for not only having survived a shark attack, but then going on to earn this title that he commissioned famous artist John Singleton Copley to create a painting called Watson and the Shark, which detailed his horrifying encounter and probably went on to scare a ton of people at the time. In our number 5 spot today, we have Instagram famous. John Braxton is a man who Instagram is definitely not very happy at, and if his video came up in your feed unsuspectingly, you might also have some words for the guy. John was 27 years old at the time of his shark encounter, and he was spearfishing at the time. During his time fishing, he had an encounter with a huge shark that ended up taking a massive bite right out of his leg. John was thankfully able to escape the shark and swim to shore, where his partner tied a tourniquet and called 911. When the ambulance arrived, John was likely in shock. I mean, I would be if I even saw a shark beside me, let alone if one bit me. So in this altered state, John took his phone out and started recording a video where he panned down to his terribly injured leg. He of course posted the video to Instagram, who later removed it, but of course not before the entire computer and phone having population got a chance to save it and reshare it at any chance possible. In our number 4 spot today, we have Breach. This is a shark encounter that truthfully I have very little background info on, but the video really speaks for itself. This shark video was recorded in Mossel Bay, and it shows this gigantic shark basically leaping out of the ocean. I mean, come on, imagine. That would be absolutely terrifying. People who are more well versed in shark behavior than I am have explained that this shark, despite how it looks, is actually not doing this to be threatening, and it's not a move that would be done should it be attempting to attack something. I mean, that's not entirely true. It's actually more so used in order to try and catch fast-moving prey like seals. It's relatively rare to capture a shark doing this though, because it takes so much energy for it to propel itself like this. I mean, they can reach 40 miles per hour and fly 10 feet into the air out of the water. That takes some serious strength. In our number 3 spot today, we have Ahmad Hassim. Back in 2006, Ahmad and his brother were assisting lifeguards in Cape Town, South Africa, and to do this, they were helping out running different survival drills. During this one particular drill, the brother was lying in the water, pretending to be someone who needed help, and that is when a huge shark could be seen heading towards this brother that was completely unaware. Ahmad saw this and was so quick thinking he knew that sharks are typically attracted to sound, which I actually didn't know, so there's a little shark trivia fact for ya. So because he knew this, he started splashing around in the water. This worked, and it led to the shark leaving his brother alone, but instead, the shark now set his sights on Ahmad. It ended up grabbing him by his right leg and pulling him underwater. He was able to use his left leg to kick at the shark until it let go of him, but the shark was still able to get away with his leg below the knee. A boat was able to rush him to shore, and help arrived quickly enough to rush him to the hospital and save his life. Ahmad has not let this slow him down in the slightest though. He has gone on to reach not only the 2008 Beijing Paralympic Games, but he won gold at the 2012 London Paralympic Games, which is absolutely incredible. He has also gone on to become a shark advocate, saying that he has, quote, a sense that sharks are in trouble, and who better to speak up for sharks than a shark attack survivor. In our number 2 spot today, we have Rodney Fox. Rodney Fox is a man who was thought of as one of the best spear fishermen in the world. In 1963, he was partaking in the Australian Spearfishing Championships, which were being held just south of Adelaide, when he went through what is widely regarded as one of the worst shark attacks in history. The shark he encountered bit him around the waist, which ended up puncturing his diaphragm, ripping his lungs, and crushing his rib cage. Not only this, but the attack left his organs exposed, so much so that when he finally made it back to shore, those rescuing him had to keep his wetsuit on to ensure that his insides actually stayed on the inside. Despite the fact that Rodney needed at least 4 hours of surgery and about 400 stitches. Like many people who have these sorts of terrifying encounters, rather than shying away from sharks and the water, he leaned in. He actually became an advocate for sharks after this. He created the first underwater shark observatory and helped to dispel the rumors that sharks are bad, crazy, scary animals that we should all fear. In our number 1 spot today, we have Michael Coots. Back in 1997, Michael was surfing near the coast of Hawaii when he had his shark encounter. The shark decided to attack and grabbed Michael by both of his legs. legs. Michael has gone on to explain that once the shark had a hold on him, it began swinging him back and forth like a dog would do with a toy. That is absolutely so vivid and so horrifying to even think about. Michael was able to punch the shark into letting go of him and was able to escape to safety after the scary ordeal. Although he was lucky and happy to be alive, the shark had done enough damage that Michael ended up losing his right leg. Despite this setback, Michael was back in the water just 3 weeks later, already using his prosthetic leg and getting used to surfing with it so he could get right back to what he loves. Michael could be terrified of sharks now and no one would blame him, but it's the exact opposite. He's swam around them and even taken selfies with them since, and has explained how much he respects them, saying, quote, "Sharks are not to be feared but are incredibly beautiful and extremely important species for the health of our oceans."
At number 10 is the terrifying deep sea footage. Now, the degree to which you'll be impressed with this video depends on how you decide to define your scale. So let's be clear, beast depicted here in this footage is absolutely a shark and is absolutely real, with its very distinguishing gills and pectoral fins. The question is though, is this your run-of-the-mill great white, or is it a megalodon? That all depends on the size of the fishing cage behind it. See, if we're to presume this to be a standard sized cage at about 10 feet, that would make the shark in front of it just shy of 30 feet wide. And since the shark is so enormous that we never get its entire body within the confines of the frame at once, we can make some estimates concerning the width to length ratio and determine that the shark here is at least 60 feet in length. Now, I'm not sure if you guys have noticed, but I'm new here at Amazing Top 10. So if you're enjoying the video so far and wouldn't mind seeing this face more often, you can support the channel, and me by extension, by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing Top 10, and ringing that notification bell. It helps us out a lot, and I personally would really appreciate it. Number 9, caught on satellite. Thanks to satellite technology, we've managed to map out 100% of the ocean floor, despite only having actually explored less than 5% of it. I say we as if I were involved personally. I'm like the nerdy equivalent of a sports fan. Anyways, aerial imagery has allowed scientists to make all sorts of discoveries. So is it that surprising for a behemoth as big as the Megalodon to turn up on something like Google Earth? And as a matter of fact, there was a Megalodon candidate spotted through satellites swimming along the Persian Gulf, which is a Mediterranean Sea in Western Asia, which is essentially an extension of the Indian Ocean between the Arabian Peninsula and Iran. One second, let me just add those to the list of places I will never go swimming. Discovered via Google Earth satellite imagery by researchers from the University of British Columbia, the consensus today is that this shark is between 50 and 70 feet in length. However, the initial calculations gave an estimated range of 80 to 100 feet. Now, it's tough to say what kind of shark this is exactly, as we only have a single image to go off of, but the shape and scale definitely fit the bill, along with the fact that the Megalodon was known to have existed in any ocean environment except for the polar ones, with the vast majority of Megalodon fossils having been discovered in coastal areas and bordering most oceans. Well, I guess I'll be swimming with the penguins from now on. At number 8 is the Brazilian coastline footage. In November of 2012, footage was released from the perspective of a rescue helicopter off the coastline of Brazil. And while the team conducting the rescue were oblivious at the time, technicians reviewing the video after the fact discovered that the team wasn't alone in the ocean that day. If you look carefully in the upper right hand corner of the video as it progresses, you'll notice an absolutely enormous shadow of an uncannily shark-like silhouette moving at an incredible speed below the surface of the ocean. And though it's hard to say for certain, we can use the lifeboat in the video as a reference to deduce that the shark depicted here is at least 60 feet long. At number 7 is the drone footage. Now, while this video isn't associated with any particular reputable research institute or anything like that, it's certainly among the most impressive Megalodon videos I've ever seen on account of the sheer size, clarity of the thing depicted. The video begins with a bird's eye view of a group of 3 children with boogie boards swimming in the ocean. Remember boogie boards? I still have mine. Not that I'll ever be using it again. So the kid on the orange boogie board furthest to the right notices the shadow of something enormous swimming beneath them. The video replays, giving us a wider zoomed out perspective where the absolutely gargantuan shark is revealed in full. Using the boogie boards as reference, it's estimated that this Goliath clocks in at roughly 95 feet long. And if that's truly the case, then this sighting quite possibly depicts evidence of the largest shark ever discovered. Yeah, no, absolutely not. No, thank you. Now, some have tried to call this thing a basking shark or a whale shark on account of its size, but you don't need a degree in marine biology to rule those out. Whale sharks are coated in distinct white spots, whereas basking sharks distinguish themselves with their wide heads, something that whale sharks are also known for. But this shark here ain't got no spots, and its head shape is more in line with that of a great white. So what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. At number 6 is the Mexican black demon. There's a tale that beckons us from the waters of the Sea of Cortez, a realm nestled between the Baja California Peninsula and Mexico's mainland. It's a place where reality blurs with the unknown, as this area is home to some of the strangest and most diverse range of aquatic giants. Welcome to the domain of the Mexican black demon, a name that sends shivers down to the spines of even the most weathered seafarers. Picture this, a creature reminiscent of the iconic great white shark, yet draped in an unsettling shroud of murky hues, as if the darkness of the abyss itself has taken form. Now don't get me wrong, we all know that great whites aren't exactly teddy bears, but the black demon takes it up a notch. Local legends have whispered for years, painting a portrait of a colossal menace lurking beneath the waves. Reporters suggest that it's longer than your average blue whale, stretching up to a staggering 80 feet. Some eager minds point to the possibility of an undiscovered species, or perhaps an oversized great white. Now, I'm a YouTuber, not a marine biologist, so take this with a grain of salt, but given that great whites and megalodons are closely related, choose to say that it ain't a bit of both. Brave souls have embarked on quests to unravel the secrets of this aquatic enigma, but like grains of sand slipping through your fingers, the black demon remains elusive. Sightings are rarer than winning a lottery ticket, leaving us tantalizingly close to the edge of discovery, yet frustratingly distant from grasping its true nature. Could it be a relic of prehistoric times, a survivor from a forgotten epoch, or perhaps a brand new chapter in the oceanic saga of evolution? At number 5 is the New Zealand cave dive. New Zealand too? Come on, man. So this alleged megalith of a shark was discovered in a diving cave off the coast of New Zealand. Now, sharks in diving caves are terrifying in their own right, but finding a shark inside of a diving cave? But this ain't just any run-of-the-mill cave-dwelling shark, as the recovered photo depicts what looks to be an insanely massive shark with the vast majority of its body extending beyond the frame. Now, admittedly, it's a bit hard to see how any shark, let alone a freaking megalodon, could fit within the confines of a dive cave. At number 4 is the COA Camp. For those of you who still doubt the modern existence of a sea creature said to have gone extinct millions of years ago, allow me to introduce you to the COA Camp. This unique bottom-dwelling fish with lengths reaching upwards of 6 feet and weights exceeding 200 pounds belonged to an ancient lineage dating back to 360 million years ago. Boasting an impressive size and a lifespan comparable to that of a megalodon, at least 60 years, this enormous fish was thought to have gone extinct over 65 million years ago, and yet it was discovered alive and well as early as 1938. So given the sheer scale of the ocean, along with the fact that Megalodon was thought to have gone extinct much more recently, only 3.5 million years ago compared to 65, it may only be a matter of time before the Megalodon is rediscovered in the modern age. One can only hope not. At number 3, the Megalodon attack in Cape Town rips a boat in half. Alright, I'll be honest with you. Admittedly, the next 3 entries are a bit of a cop-out, but they're super intriguing nonetheless. You see, during Shark Week, the Discovery Channel decided to air a mockumentary series about the definitive existence of the Megalodon in the modern age, titled The Monster Shark Lives. But the Discovery Channel failed to include any sort of disclaimer that what was depicted in the film was actually all fake. As a matter of fact, the Discovery Channel casted actors as professionals in marine biology, and all the events in the film were presented as actually being real, leading this quote-unquote educational show to becoming the most viewed Shark Week show to date, generating countless clips that would go on to be perceived as factual to this very day. One such clip depicts the found footage of passengers on a fishing boat, and after some time a thunderous boom can be heard, followed by the sounds of muffled screams and rushing water, accompanied by imagery of the boat being flooded as it flips upside down. The initial story was that a whale had breached over the top of the boat. Upon further investigation of the wreckage by a diving team, they discovered that the boat had been chomped in half. There were no survivors, and the bodies of the fishermen were never found. Well, I'm sure the actors are fine. At number 2, a whale is bitten in half. Our second clip from the Monster Shark Lives docuseries opens with the paid actor, marine biologist Colin Drake, going after some handheld video footage that looks really HD for a homemade movie shot in 2009. As the father and son enjoy some fishing off the coast, they spot what looks to be the remains of a beached whale, only the entire lower half of the whale appears to have been bitten clean off. Well, imagine a battle of the titans, a colossal whale grappling with the behemoth of a megalodon. A battle of epic proportions, a dance of primal forces that leaves us on the edges of our seats, but alas, this tale took a somber turn. In this watery arena, victory belongs to the Megalodon. Its massive jaws close around the portion of the whale's tail, a painful reminder of the harsh reality of nature's unforgiving hierarchy. And at number 1 is the oil rig video. Sometimes the most unexpected observers can uncover the most remarkable secrets. You might think that the vast expanse of the ocean is constantly under surveillance by the vigilant gaze of scientists, government officials, and marine experts, right? Well, in this case, according to what I already described as the very reputable Discovery channel, it was actually an 8-year-old prodigy from Chile who discovered something truly out of the ordinary beneath the waves. Now for context, let's quickly go over ocean surveillance. You see, scientists and government agencies have studied the ocean floor with high-tech cameras at key locations, giving us a glimpse into the mysterious world beneath the surface. We're talking about a network of underwater cameras nestled around scientific sites and oil rigs, some of which have live feeds accessible to anyone with a curious itch. So back to our young Chilean protagonist. This sharp-eyed kid was casually monitoring one of these live feeds when he suddenly stumbled upon a sight that sent shivers down marine expert spines. Behold, a shadowy fin of disastrous proportions cutting through the water with an almost prehistoric elegance. Now the experts, being the skeptics that they are, were quick to assert that there's currently no concrete proof of the legendary Megalodon prowling our modern day oceans. Yet the fin they encountered on camera was massive. Cue the synchronized video feeds and the math wizards doing their thing. By comparing angles and distances, they sized up this enigmatic creature, revealing an astonishing estimation, a staggering 62 feet in length, give or take. Now that's longer than a school bus, my friends. Now it's just too bad that this sighting was confirmed exclusively by the scientists at the Discovery Channel.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the Zoyu Maru monster. This story is one that comes to us from 1977, and rather than an alive animal sighting, this one is actually this carcass that was found that we still aren't quite sure what it belongs to. The Zoyu Maru carcass was one that was found by Japanese fishermen near New Zealand. Because it was so unique, it was taken to be analyzed, and while many have speculated that it was a basking shark, that has never been confirmed or proven. Considering the fact that it was definitely shark-like, but just not quite clear as to what exactly it was, is definitely interesting. In our number 9 spot today, we have the sea creature. Back in both 1817 as well as 1819, there was a sea creature that visited the coast of Massachusetts, and it was seen by hundreds of people, but no one has been able to identify what it could have been for sure. The creature was said to be around 3 feet in diameter and around 50 feet long, and it is said that it moved similarly to how a whale or a dolphin might. The first sighting of this creature was when some fishermen spotted it, but the real panic began as the creature started to show itself closer to shore. To this day, some people swear that this was some sort of real sea monster, and others believe it was just a case of mass hysteria. What do you think? In our number 8 spot today, we have the Prehistoric Monster. Back in 1959, a fisherman named Tex Geddes and his friend James Gavin were boating somewhere just off of the coast of Scotland. It is said that during their time out to sea, they encountered a sea monster that neither of them had seen before. They described its head as being sort of turtle-shaped, and that it was a, quote, hellish monster of prehistoric times, and said that it was breathing heavily through a, quote, large red gash of a mouth. Okay, not exactly a kind description, but definitely a bit of a terrifying one. I think it's important to bring up that we don't actually know what megalodons looked like. We have a sort of idea, but at the end of the day, we only have fossils, jaws, and spines, and that doesn't leave us that much to work with. While it isn't quite clear what these two men saw for sure, and it's likely that we'll never know, whatever it was definitely wasn't just your average sea creature. In our number 7 spot today, we have Dr. Gru. When we think of the tales of sea monsters and myths, we often think of the many serpent-like creatures that just may be lurking underneath the water. This is definitely a common theme, and in the 17th century there was a botanist who came up with a sort of explanation for these sea serpent sightings. It's important to note that this botanist was a very legitimate scientist who really worked to change basically everything we knew about plant anatomy, so when he came forth with this evidence and explanation, it rightfully caught people's attention. Basically, he had this specimen, which was a sample of skin that he said was from some sort of seal, but that it had a neck just as long as the rest of its body. Of course, this would explain a whole bunch of sea monster sightings, but in the end, the skin sample ended up completely disappearing, making any confirmation of the story or the animal's existence completely impossible. I know a megalodon isn't necessarily supposed to look like a seal with a long neck, but who's to say for sure that it doesn't? In our number 6 spot today, we have the Shipwreck. Back in 1909, the French steamer La Seine was out to sea when it collided with the British India steamer, the Onda. A shipwreck is never good, but this one was particularly bad as, in heavy fog, the French ship sank in just 2 minutes. This of course left people stranded in the water, and I mean, you can probably see where this is going. In the aftermath of this wreck, while waiting for the rescue, there were 101 people who lost their lives from shark attacks. That's a lot of people. That is either a lot of sharks or a very few large ones. I mean, none of us were there, so it's hard to say for sure, but whatever really happened here, it's an absolutely horrifying horrifying tragedy. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Kayak Encounter. Ida Parker and Kristen Orr were kayaking off of the coast of Plymouth in 2014 when they encountered a shark. This is truly a nightmare scenario, and it must have been absolutely terrifying. The pair, however, had actually set off with the intention of seeing a great white shark, and while it's likely that this is exactly what they encountered, they definitely did not expect what happened next. The two had heard of rumblings of a shark in the area that had swallowed a seal in one gulp, and this is what sparked their desire to head out on this journey. While out there, however, the shark began to attack their kayaks. In the end, both of them made it out alive, and when their kayaks were recovered, one was found with a huge bite mark in it. In our number 4 spot today, we have the oldest shark attack. Considering the fact that the Megalodon is said to have been extinct somewhere over 2 million years ago, even evidence that seems ancient to us is a lot more recent than what our current understanding of their timeline here on Earth would suggest. That is exactly why the discovery of what is speculated to be the world's oldest evidence of a shark attack is very interesting. This discovery came by way of a 3,000-year-old human skeleton that is marked with different gashes and puncture wounds. It is said that because of the volume of wounds, it makes it slightly easier to tell the story of what happened. This is because while researchers first believed that perhaps the wounds were caused by metal weapons, this could not explain why there were so many in certain parts of the body. Another telltale sign is how this skeleton was discovered in Japan, which at the time of this person's life, there weren't really any metal weapons at that point in history in Japan, which ruled out this theory entirely. They were also able to rule out other terrestrial carnivores, and that's when they turned to marine life to look for some more answers. Because of the time it's been, we obviously don't know what creature was involved in this attack for sure, but with the mass amount of wounds found on the skeleton, it was likely to be something large and terrifying. In our number 3 spot today, we have snorkeling. Robert Pamperin and a friend, Gerald Lehrer, were snorkeling off of La Jolla Cave in California in 1959 when Robert was attacked by a shark. It is said to have all happened quite quickly, and Gerald was alerted to the distress when he heard Robert scream. Gerald turned and saw Robert unusually high in the water, and his mask was missing. At this point, Gerald dove under, and this is when he realized exactly what was going on. There was a shark that had Robert in its mouth up to his waist. Unfortunately, there was not much Gerald could do to stand up to this absolutely massive shark that he described as larger than your average great white. Robert sadly did not survive the event, and by the time rescuers arrived, they were only able to locate one of his fins. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Jersey Shore. Back in 1916, during the summer season, there were 5 different shark attacks that occurred over the span of 10 days that ended up in the deaths of 4 people. This wasn't something that had been seen before in the area, which of course left people speculating as to why. There was a heat wave in the area during the time, which likely led to more people being out enjoying summertime sort of activities, and maybe this attracted the shark, but in the end, no one knows for sure because no one even knows what kind of shark is responsible for the attacks in the first place. Luckily, this didn't go on to become a continuous trend, and whatever shark this was went on its merry way, or perhaps found another food source or whatever, but this series of attacks definitely kept the public on edge for the weeks and months surrounding. In our number 1 spot today, we have the USS Indianapolis. This is a story that has been considered the worst shark attack in history, which is definitely a horrific thing to think about. In 1945, the USS Indianapolis was an unescorted US warship that was sailing in the Pacific when it was struck by a Japanese torpedo. This had no problem tearing the ship in two, which meant that 900 sailors were now floating in the ocean waiting for rescue. Over the next 5 days, nearly 600 men lost their lives due to shark attacks. I said this about the other one that was similar to this, and I'll say it again. That's either a group of sharks or a very few large, very hungry ones. From the survivors' accounts of what happened over the course of those days, it seemed like an absolutely nightmare situation. This is exactly why this has gone on to be called one of the worst shark attacks in history.
Want to see more videos like this one? Check out this video next. These are authentic, verified ghost sightings captured on camera